Are they already there to do the numbers?
No, we didn't do the numbers.
What's that, that's for Monday?
No, that's.
No, these, that's Tuesday. That's today.
Where's the ticket? Oh.
Main photocopy.
He's the one and three popped out.
So what are they?
That's from last week, so it's just yesterday ended.
So that's Thursday, right?
Yeah.
I ain't been here in a while, I'm just checking. Y'all wrote those up here today?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
It's been like.
All right, y'all, all right. Hey, I'm slow, man. You ain't gonna be real smart in this, remember? You gotta work hard on everybody, right, Alex?
Yeah.
All right, Anthony, it's like having a microphone, I like this.
Yeah.
First off, y'all like new office?
Yeah. Very nice.
I want a big thank you to John and Stephanie,
Yeah.
because they did all the work. Like, I've been gone for 3 weeks, and all this is, so, Stephanie picked everything out, and John paid for most of it. Well, I want to say thank you, guys.
Yeah.
And, yeah, 'cause as you grow, you have good partners, and he's been a great business partner for me for the last 4 years, and it just gets better. So, if you're thinking about building it, you need to find you a good business partner, and I'm blessed to have a ton of them. You know, Brent's been with me since day one, he's here. Matt and I have gotten to know him, we've been knowing each other for 6 years, I think. And, he came all the way over today to train you guys from Washington, not like, you know, like Washington State. Some, they're Oregon.
15 minutes from the Portland airport.
Yeah,
Wow.
but, he's gonna help us out, huh?
It's a direct flight, it's not that bad.
That's not what you said earlier.
It sucks, actually.
We're all about being truthful, so
So let's start with that.
all right, so we did, Rochelle went around, was it 5 appointments you had to have?
For every 5, you got to get.
For every 5 you got a ticket, so we're gonna draw 2, and we're gonna, Facebook order is what they're getting?
Yes.
Let Matt, you wanna draw it? Sure. Can you get your pen in there? No.
Boy, just shake it out.
You don't wanna do it either?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's right.
Dude, it's not gonna happen.
Chopsticks.
Yeah. Go get it.
There's Maddox in the school.
Yeah.
We're like a kid. You're an idiot going in there.
Pour it out.
There you go.
It's human and aggressive, too.
Yeah.
She's like, we'll just break it. Right?
Shelley.
Shelly.
That makes sense.
Scary. I was stuck.
It's gonna be Shelly again.
Well, it's on the phone.
This is, I won this one because
Look at you.
can't read that.
Rob Riley.
That's it, Rob.
Yeah.
Almost, it looked like boot. I was like, we don't have a boot? No. I know I can't see Rick.
Rob,
Yeah. Yeah. It looks like a roux.
All right, so we'll get y'all ordered. Y'all just let Rochelle know. Okay. So these are our numbers. So, hey, we had a record week this week. Kind of odd, right?
Yeah.
First, we'll open the office up and, y'all guys did a little over $1 million this week. Not issue paid, y'all submitted. You know what's weird about you guys? Like, y'all submit and issue more. Like, that's impossible. Somehow. Right? You understand that? Like, when you report your numbers, that means half this room don't report their numbers. Y'all might, but I doubt it. Because we'll issue more than, so it's really cool, because now we did $1 million, that means we're gonna issue like 1.1. John did numbers, he's like, we issue more than we submit, which is odd, because when we were smaller, we talked about it. Normally you could go, as you're building the business, you, if you submit 300,000, usually issue about 2.25, you know, 20, 25 falls off the book. I mean, it doesn't fall off, it's just, some people also lie, see their name, you know, it's like, that's where, like, we're trying to get better, and I am at recognition, because a lot of people will talk about their numbers just to be recognized. Does that make sense? And I'm the worst at it. I think you just would like to get paid. I don't care if they recognize you or not, you know. But we're all human also. We want to be recognized. So that people submit numbers that don't really count. But like y'all do it opposite, like y'all just don't submit them and we do more. It's really a good problem.
I don't have that problem.
Oh, man. So Matt, so like I said, me and Matt have known each other for, probably 6 years, maybe?
It's been more than
Maybe
that.
7 now?
Oh, I'm gonna go back to 2010.
And we're live also. Oh, yeah, it's 9 years. Oh, that's good, you start, that's right, so we've been, yeah, that's right.
You messed
started
up
at
our
6.
by 3. We've been 7, not 4, so he's definitely been more. He's been here for a few years.
Oh, dude, I can't remember. That's right, so we,
I mean, we're day one over here, so whatever.
It's been a long
You're
time.
my day one over here.
day one? Oh, God. Oh, man. This thing just keeps getting more fun and more fun. That's right, you say it, but it does. All right, we talked about that last night too, that test. Yes, this thing is more fun. That's proper, right? Is that proper English? More fun?
Fine.
Yeah, that's not funner. More fun to start.
But you got your, oh, you're good.
Yes, see?
So we're talking,
Yeah.
so we're talking about this last night. So Matt is one of the number one, so like, he's gonna have a recount, he says, this year, and he said he would.
There's no recount, she's gonna beat me. It's a matter of time.
But Matt was number one, Amy has been number one last year, and, but Matt's now building, he has one of the biggest agencies on the West Coast. So, it was funny, he's like, we talk about this sometimes, I could just sell 700,000-800,000 a year, or I could build a business, you know, it's easy for Matt. Cause I mean, he's good with people. And I was like, share with him whatever you want to share with him. And, it was really cool, like in the office, he makes all these notes. And I told him he only had 2.5 hours. I was just kidding.
You could be all asleep.
No, you're
We're
funny.
used to the 2.5 hours.
And he's funnier than me, John. Sometimes.
The problem is I think I'm funny. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
when you think you're funny, you're not as funny as you think you are, but then you don't care because you think you're funny. It's real weird. I've got a lot of issues up there, so.
That's why I think we get along so well.
Because I have issues, or?
Well, no, because I'm the same way. I'm not funny at all, but
Yeah.
I like, pretty funny, didn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm like, it's funny. I'm talking to myself, and y'all are going, he's an idiot.
You were talking about.
And I'm like, this is pretty funny. Like,
Yeah.
they're not even smiling.
I'm literally the guy that like is laughing at himself, and then I see the people in the crowd that aren't laughing, and I still think it's funny. I don't know. It's a weird deal. Yeah.
But they're all yours, bud.
Okay.
5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 hours.
I got a lot of stuff cool figured out, and I don't want to bore you guys.
And I'm gonna be back
I
down.
don't want to lose you either. Can I erase this?
You can. Oh, well, let me ask first. Numbers. Who doesn't know what these? Who's brand new and doesn't understand these? Okay. Let's see. All right, so the first number, today's our first day of the new week. Does that make sense? So our weeks run from Thursday to Wednesday. So I mentioned we had the biggest week we've ever had. We did a little over $1 million in insurance for the week, which is crazy because the first year we were in business, we did 1.4 the whole year. Now you guys did 1.1 this week.
Wow.
That's like crazy, and think about that. Only 2014. Nuts. 1.49 million the whole year. You guys did 1.1 this week. So it's really cool. Well, what this is so Let's had 25 appointments for the 7 days. Of course, she has 0 left. She wrote $14,704 on 10 applications. That means she has 10 people that she wrote insurance on, and it came out to $14,000. She's gonna get paid off this number. So if you're at an 80% contract, you get paid 80% of this. She's at 100, she makes 100% of it. Whatever your contract is what she makes. That's the question. Yes.
How many people did she sit with?
How many did you sit with out of 25 less?
Maybe 18?
18? Do you know how many people you sold? Like, was that multiple apps to get 10 apps? So was it like,
I probably told one person to, yeah.
okay, so you're like 9 out of 18,
Yeah.
10 apps. Just curious, like closing percentage. Track all that because it matters.
We're Matt, if you look at John has done it. We're almost exactly 50%.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, John gets like the whole year.
I'm sure John did.
Yeah.
I like.
Well, we're like 50, weren't we not a little above 50%
Yeah,
last
for
year?
sure.
So, yeah.
Hey, yeah. It's good to know those numbers for everybody, you know. How many people are new here? with, what I mean by new is 6 months or less. Okay. That's good to know. How about a year or less? Okay. Anyways, go
Does
ahead.
that make sense? Okay, we report them on Mondays and Thursdays. So we'll do this again on Monday, halfway through the week, just kind of check in, see where you are, and then we'll do it, and then this is the final numbers on, it helps. So you understand, it helps your manager, and it helps you understand, like, those questions Matt was asking, is like, if this was 25, and this was like 6,000 and 6, you're like, what half, because it's normally half. So, and new people, a lot of times new people will, I call them fake appointments, because the phone sucks, right? Like, it's no fun to dial. Let's just be honest. Like, that's what we like to do anyways. It's like, who likes to dial? Don't raise it. But we have to be good at it, which you are good at, so you probably might know. But what'll happen when you're new, they'll say, yeah, I might be there, come on by at 6. You're like, got one, click. Some of y'all did that today, get those little tickets. Well, I only got 4, but the last guy said, he sounded like he might be there. He told me, hell no, it wasn't real convincing, the hell no, it was just maybe no, maybe a soft no. That's one, I got one. So when Ray walked by, y'all like, yep, I got 5. And you might only have 2. But you understand, don't cheat yourself. You're lying to yourself. We want to hold you accountable, but we want you to be realistic to you, because you got to answer your family. I mean, it's not about me or Matt or John, it's not Brent, it's not about the managers, it's like, I want you to make money. So don't lie on this number, and the numbers work out, it's 50%.
Yeah.
You're gonna sell half, so I wanted to make sure you understand that, so.
You guys are a great example of keeping track of your activity and your numbers. And
I'll see you in 2 hours.
yeah. One thing I would say, if you're not already doing this, because it's kind of inside the numbers that you're tracking, that, you know, make sure you keep track of all your dials. If you're new, dials are just literally dialing the phone one time, right? If they don't pick up, I usually dial, and I'll do some phone training right after that too. I usually dial a lead 4 times. The 4th time I do *67 to block the number. I get usually about 3 appointments more every week by blocking my number, to give you an idea. Over about a decade of doing this, calling leads, I'd say 3 extra appointments a week by just dialing. They won't pick up the known number, but they see a block number, they'll pick it up and you set up appointments. It's just weird like that. So make sure you're doing *67. The other thing is, you know, your appointments to sit ratio. We all struggle with this, by the way, right? But to know that you did 25 to 18 is actually a pretty good ratio. Means you're holding appointments pretty well. I think that's a number that's, like, if you can hold that, I would probably almost be satisfied with it, quite frankly. I think that's a good number to have. For a lot of people that are new, because they're setting appointments out too far, you know, more than 48 hours, not tying down the appointment, they end up not sitting with people, then you get frustrated, and that becomes more difficult. So one of the key components that I tell people about when you're dialing on the phone is, you want to be in control of the conversation, but once they really agree to set the appointment with you, then it's okay to slow the call down. Don't get off the phone so quick when they've agreed to set the appointment. Now it's time to take the time to tie it down. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? So now it's, so if they agree to meet you on Monday between 6:30 and 7, always give time ranges. Don't pick up the phone when you're driving out. To call, show up. Number 1 rule is showing up. Good things will happen when you show up. Make sure that you're literally saying, okay, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, can you get out a pen? What time did I say on Monday? Between 6:30 and 7. They're repeating it back to you. This in regards to information about life insurance you requested online. You know, I'll see you between 6:30 and 7. Is there any cross streets? What color is your house? What cars are out front? Is there any reason why you and your spouse won't be home at that time? So you're covering and you're slowing down at the end. Because one thing I notice with new people and veteran agents alike, is, I've said this a long time, but 80% of this business is the phone. And as you do live dials here, we do live dials in our group, the one thing that is overcoming me, and it's maybe taken me this long, but what I've realized is you're not as good on the phone that you think you are, number one. And number two is for a lot of you new people, you're literally winging it. And it's bothering me that you think you can come into this business and not rehearse, prepare, and understand it. So, and you're gonna hear me say things, I speak out of both sides of my mouth a lot, so understand what I mean by that. But we also want you to start fast, so we don't need you to prepare, and never get on the phones. That's not the point. But the point is you don't even prepare enough, because when you get put in the fire, like I have not dialed a lead personally, so I'm going to tell you the truth. I dial leads for the first 8 to 9 years of my career. I would recommend all of you dial your own leads. I don't think you should get a dial. It does not work. It's not worthwhile, and you need to know how to set up appointment, okay? For the last 2.5 years or so, because I'm building an agency, I don't dial leads anymore. But what's interesting is, when I'm training you on the phone right here, guess what? I don't even have to think about objections, because I dialed leads every week for 8 or 9 years with the same objections every single time. So it's just, when you get to the point of not thinking like Amy, for example, or I guarantee Grace is the same, big producers in the room, everything becomes secondary, because I guarantee you the leads don't suck, it's probably that you suck. And I mean that with love. But like, kid gloves, white gloves, all that stuff, whatever. But I guarantee, like, even when we're doing interviews, John, like with people, those are things that I address up front about, like, hey, have you purchased leads in the past? Like when you're hiring. What type of leads did you buy? Did you buy internet leads? Did you buy social insurance leads? Did you buy direct mail leads? Tell me about, well, the leads were horrible. They're real, and they're saying, it's like, guess what? You just weren't prepared. You probably didn't have a good mentor. You probably just don't know how to set an appointment. And then you know what I love doing when I'm talking to people is like, I guarantee if I said, hey, I already took care of it, I'm busy, I need the price, call me back. If I said that to the person on the phone that I'm talking to, and you can't tell me right now how to overcome those, right now on the spot, you are answering this ad for a reason. See what I'm saying? So these are conversations, by the way, I'm not only having with you to get you better in sales, these are now the conversations I have with people on the phone. So, for hiring as well. So let's get into kind of the common objections that you'll have, because I think you need to know how to overcome those, and I think it's extremely important. So a lot of times, first thing you need to understand about dialing the phone is you get one chance. So when they pick up the phone, and maybe you sound like a telemarketer, which is fine, whatever, or you just really did catch them at the wrong time, they say, I need you, or can you call me back? And a lot of you new people will say, yeah, okay, I'll call you back, right? And then they might say, well, call me they might give you a feel good, call me tonight at 6:30. Oh, okay, and you're like, yes, and then you call at 6:30, they don't answer. But the key is you need to understand quality set appointments versus quick set appointments. So let's start there. The call me back objection. So, hey, call me back. Great, that's actually the purpose of my phone call. That's the go-to to stall my head. So every objection I get, I'm going to use a buffer. Great, that's the purpose of my phone call. What time are you and your spouse generally home from work? Or are you retired? So you understand what that is another huge, it's one of the biggest things I see new agents do and fail on, is you don't ask what time they're going to be home or whether they're working retired. You don't ask when they're both going to be home, and then you say, how does a 4 or a 6 work? And you're like, I work till 7, so none of those work. And then you're like, well, I've got an 8, and then you're like scrambling. So one of the key failures is, I need you to slow down and think about it, is what time do you and your spouse get home from work? 7. Great. This is in regards to final expense burial costs. My job is to get you the information you requested. It's going to take me 10 or 15 minutes to do so. I'll see you on Monday between about 7 and 7:30. Does that sound fair to you? So you gotta quick set the appointment, because they're getting off the phone. And by the way, when you say, does that sound fair to you? Like little, I promise you, little word tracks are the difference between getting the appointment and not. And I'm surprised, it really is that crucial and critical that you have the correct language on the phone so you're not scaring them away. So that's a quick set appointment. Perfect, so you say perfect, that's the purpose of my phone call. What time are you and your spouse home during the week? And then you remind them what it's about. Hey, this is in regards to life insurance online, you requested it. My job is to get you the information. There are non-medical options. I have to verify your health. Can't do it over the phone, I'm sure you'd understand. Takes me 10 or 15 minutes to get you the information. I'll be there between about 7 and 7:30. Does that sound fair to you? You know what I mean? Like, quick set the appointment. Any reason why you both won't be there on Monday? Then you slow down a little bit at the end when they say, sure. You know what I mean? Still, slow down, tie it down, and be good to go. A lot of times when you get the busy objection, it's the same thing. Busy means quick set. Hey, I'm busy. Great, actually that's the person on my phone call. What time? Same deal. Same objection, same answer, right? I need the price. Great, actually that's the purpose of my phone call. These are non-medical options which I have to verify your health. I can't do that over the phone. What time are you and your spouse generally home from work? 6. These are non-medical options. I'll verify your health. It takes me 10 minutes to get you the information. I'll see you on Monday between about 6 and 6:30. Does that sound fair? It's not even so much what I'm saying. It's just that I'm confident. I can say it quick. Like, that's pretty fast, by the way, but I have that much control. Does that make sense? Like, there's not a scenario that, you know, hey, I already took care of it. Great, actually that's the purpose of my phone call. People fill out multiple forms to get the best offer. My job is to get you the information. Are you working or retired? I'm retired. Great, I'm gonna be out in your area tomorrow between about 12, 12:30. I'll get you this information, make sure you got the best pricing for your plan that you were looking for. Sound fair? You know what I mean? Like, doesn't matter what they say, you just have to be ready, aim, fire all the time. So really think about your phone skill. Let me see if I have any others. Callback price, you know, send me the info. Great, that's actually the purpose of my phone call. I have to verify your health, which I can't do over the phone. So I'm gonna be out in your area. It's the same stuff, right? It's the same similar path, the same road. But what I see people do is you guys talk too much. Like, you'll be like, yeah, so, yeah, I'm gonna get you that info, and so that is actually, no, we're gonna get you better pricing and stuff, and what's gonna happen is I'm gonna ask you some questions, and it's gonna be like this hour-and-a-half presentation, so I need you to brace up. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't stop talking so much, because nothing good happens on the phone. Just set the appointment, tie it down the best you can, you'll have a ton of success. So I need everyone in the room, to a certain extent, I need to reevaluate your phoning. Like, think about it and reevaluate it, because it's everything in this business. You know, and I'm a big fan of leaving messages, by the way. Like, I've done it every single way. Now, here's the key to leaving messages. The key is, literally, don't pick up the phone if they call you back and you don't have, like, the lead in front of you or the information, because then you can't verify their info, and then you don't have the validity, so it's not worth you picking up the phone. But I'm a big fan. I'll probably set 3 more appointments a week, leaving messages. You know, people text message, take a picture of the lead, all these different things. Everything works a little. And with the new generation of texting and all that, it's not like that's new, but like, people are used to that. So, yes.
How often do you call them before you leave a message?
4 times. And definitely if you're dealing with like internet leads or, you know, Facebook type leads, I would leave a message, because they're more time sensitive even than I believe. So.
Do you make those 4 calls in a row?
Yep.
Or is there a spacing?
No, I'll make 4 calls in a row, and I'm not scared to call them, you know, again 4 times later in the day. So, and a lot of times what's crazy is like, if you've ever gotten called 4 times in a row, because everybody's got their phone on, you generally pick up the phone. But people will fold it like 2 or 3. You get 4 in a row. You're like, who the heck is getting a hold of me, right? So, very interesting.
Hey, before you go on to the next one, can I ask you something? When you're dialing, like, scheduling for the weekend, what are your segues into finding the time? You know, like during the week, you know, are you working, or, you know, are you retired? But what do you say, like, when you're setting them up for the weekend appointments?
For the weekend appointments, just,
Yeah,
it's just.
I mean, same thing, or?
Same thing, you know,
Okay.
are you working or retired?
Okay.
What time are you gonna be home? I'm actually
Okay.
dispatched out in Erie tomorrow, I don't have a ton of time. So I always don't have a ton of time, takes away the fact they're busy.
Okay.
So I always say I don't have a ton of time, to beat them to I'm busy, right? Like, I don't have a ton of time, it takes 10 or 15 minutes to get you the information. I'll be out in Erie tomorrow, I could probably squeeze you in between about 12 or 12:30, does that sound fair to you? You know what I mean? So just, you know, just ask when they're gonna be home and good things will happen from there. But don't push yourself out there, because you just look, and it happens a lot, guys, because we train a lot of new agents, and like you're trying to set an appointment when they're not there, and it's just awkward, you know, when you don't ask up front. It's simple things, but easily overlooked, you know. The other thing you don't want to, you know, sits to your app counts, appointments to sits, how many door knocks you make, how many referrals you get every week. Like, I would track all of that. If I want to know all those numbers, I want to know how many referrals you get, I want to know how many door knocks you get, I want to know your activity every week, because if you're like, yeah, I didn't do any door knocks, made, you know, $82 this week, and you're like, I don't know why it's not working, you know what I mean? And you're not willing to get any referrals, that's a problem too. Like, and I'll talk about persistency here in a little bit as well. So, so let's talk about leads real quick, lead strategy for new people and veteran agents too, but I'm kind of mostly thinking about new people in the room here. A lot of times when we hire people, we have questions like, what's the best return on my investment? And I know that seems like the right question to ask when you're new. It's actually not the right question. So the right question to ask is, how can I make money fast? So there's a big difference between return on investment, and also we've got to take everything into account. Running final expense it's a very simple sale. It's a very easy sale, and you usually have direct deposits within 2-3 days of you getting instant approval in the house. So it's a great place to start for new agents. I personally love the idea of, you know, I'll give you an example of things that we train on our group. Taking $500, getting, like we do social insurance leads on Facebook. I like them because I know the ad says stay regulated life insurance. You know, so that's important to know what these Facebook ads say. At least I know that they identify that it's stay regulated life insurance is going to cost something for them. And I also I did fund a $340,000 annuity off of a social insurance lead this last month. So it's amazing when you run final expense, it's kind of like if you run it consistently, there's always, every quinton of the business is going to open up another quinton of the business. So if you don't run final expense consistently, you're going to miss out on an annuity opportunity. Or if you don't do internet leads, you're going to miss out on an annuity opportunity. Or if you don't mix in some mortgage or do, you know, you're going to miss out on different opportunities. So you want to run all different lead types is the moral of the story. But I like starting with some, you know, Facebook final expense and getting 20 leads. Here's what I tell people you should expect. Because everybody's off the board. I think my numbers are actually the most realistic. Because I hear a lot of different ones, but this is the real numbers because I keep track of them. $500 investment, 20 leads, you get a hold of 10 people. Can't get a hold of the other 10 people. 2 sales, $1,200 in your bank account. You'll get them on months 10, 11, and 12, you get the other $400, okay? So you're gonna get $1,200 in the first 3 or 4 days by you running those leads. Now here's where everybody fails. They pay their bills with that $1,200. I need you to, in the same week, I need you to spend another $500 in the same week, because now we're working with 30 leads, not 20 anymore. And you'll probably get 3 to 4 sales now off of 30. And we're looking at a 7-day scenario where now you've got another $1,800 deposit. So you've got a right around $3,000 deposit, spent 1,000, you're netting $2,000 in about a week. But most of you won't do that because you're scared to be on offense again. In a long time now. Most of you are scared of that scenario. So you need to think about, how do I make money fast, not necessarily what's my return on investment. And you need to think about how to cram, with final expense, you want to cram an area as much as possible. The reason why I personally like to set my own appointments and not have a appointment set for myself is because I don't want to be running over here one day and over here. You're all over the place. Like, I want to be isolated in each area. So you need lead flow for that, right? You need a massive amount of lead flow, yeah.
So then, realistically, let's say a new agent, within a 30-day span, let's say they're appointed, they're ready to do business. With that method, you just use the 500 reinvest. How much do you think realistically an agent can make within a 30-day span, within their first 30 days with the business? Like I said, make money fast. Like,
Yeah.
what can they expect to be paid?
I mean, if you're being aggressive, like I was just talking about, the answer is always it depends.
But if they did
Because-
exactly what you told them. to
Yeah,
do,
it depends on skill set too, to be fair, right? I mean, everybody's gonna be different. Everybody's gonna have different belief levels, everybody's gonna have different concerns, everybody's gonna have different everything. So I think
average.
you could, if you use that, I think you can make net $2,000 a week. If you spend 1,000 and
Brand new agent, 30
brand
days.
new, yeah, it's final expense. I mean, it's not a hard sale.
So that's $8,000.
Yep, net.
Net.
Yeah, it's a 6-figure job right off the bat if you treat it like one. You know, if you work it, right? And it's a final expense is a volume play too. You know, so that's why you do need massive amount of leads. Now, we want you to get in all different quintings, so you know how to do, you know, Americo's 125 cashback closes for under age 60 and index universal life annuities. Those are areas that can really balloon your income. And we can talk about that, but really at the end of the day, it's that's where it starts, right? You've got to get your cash flow up, and in order to do that, you have to invest. You know.
And what would you say then, you know, so an agent like that, what do you encourage your agents as a healthy reinvestment as a full-time agent? Is that like $2,000 a week, or?
Depends on, everybody's different, right? Depends on your goal.
I'm
You
looking
know,
for average.
it depends on how much money the individual wants to make, obviously. Everybody's all over the board. Some people want to issue $10,000 a month, and some people want to be Amy and issue $70,000. You know, I mean, it's, you know, everybody's different. So I don't know how to necessarily answer that. I mean, on an average, most people don't spend $1,000 a week in the beginning because they're scared. So I don't, you know, that's the truth. That's why I'm talking to you guys about it, because they're scared to do it.
But if you had your way and they would listen to what you're saying, what would you recommend?
I'd tell them to spend $2,000.
$2,000
Yeah,
a week? That's
yeah.
what I thought.
I would make a lead problem. The best feeling in the world to me is having so many leads, it creates massive action.
Yeah.
Like, oh crap, I spent all this money, now I have to work, I have no, like, you know what a great way to really crank up your business is, like, hire a assistant. Put somebody on payroll when it's not just you. Because if it's just you, you'll just be like, I'll take the day off. We're good. But it's not like that. So you've got to, you know, you get an office. All of a sudden, you want to work harder. Sometimes, you know, you don't make it about you, and it'll be much better. So, yeah, I'm an offensive-minded person for sure. Yeah.
You mentioned issue pay. Can you just help explain a little bit the difference between annual premium and issue pay?
Submitted an issue pay.
Like the numbers up on the board, those are annual.
Those, yeah. So I mean, issue paid is, you know, let's say you're, just for the sake of easy math, 100 contract, and you had $1,000 of annual premium. So somebody gave you a check for $83 in the house. So what that means is the carriers are going to advance 75% up front. So that'd be $750 in your bank account off an $83, you know, monthly sale. So that is an annual premium. So whatever the monthly premium, they annualize that the carriers advance 75% of that. And then on months 10, 11, and 12, you get the rest of the money. Now, here's the interesting part. Most agents quit before months 10, 11, and 12. So here's the problem with that, though, is you have to do everything you can to fight, scratch, and claw to get to months 10, 11, and 12, because that could free up all your lead bill, just on trailing commissions, right? I mean, think about that. Think about the stress of, whatever the stress is. It could be as simple as gas. It could be as simple as your lead bill. Think about all those things being freed up 10, 11, and 12 for you just because you stuck with it. Most people quit, but most people quit because they don't even prepare for the phone, and then they get frustrated, and they can't even, like the stuff we were just talking about, they can't even set a darn appointment, you know? And it doesn't matter what type of lead it is or anything else. It's I promise you, it's you. So I'm going to give you 3 steps to massive action, and I got to tell you a story. I'm going to take you through a little story. So you guys, this is one where I can't have you fall asleep on. So I'm warning everybody in the room: don't fall asleep yet. I'll allow you to fall asleep later, just not right now. Okay. When I start seeing more than about 3 people fall asleep, I'll just call it off. So I'm kidding. Maybe. Anyway, so yeah, this is something I did on our leadership call a few weeks ago, and it's actually one of my, like, this is pretty crazy. It is literally one of my biggest fears in my life, this scenario. So I'm going to give you 3 steps to massive action, but I got to take you through the first journey of figuring out what you don't want. That's actually the first step to taking massive action. But I got to tell you a story that is something I really don't want in my life. So first of all, raise your hand if you've ever wasted a day of your life. Okay. Hey! Yes! Okay, raise your hand if you wasted a week. Okay, how about a month? How about a month now? A month, okay.
Collectively.
How about a year? Did you waste a year? Like you go back. Now, let's be honest. I think you all raise your hand, and I'll tell you why. Because you wouldn't go to that first New Year's resolution and be like, I'm going to do this, and this year is going to be different. You feel like you probably wasted a year. Whether you did or not, maybe I could debate it.
If you compound the time.
Yeah, it hurts though, right? Is what I'm getting at. It's like you feel like you've wasted time, and that's your most valuable resource, right? Is time. So think about this. Here comes my fear. I'm 87. Have no idea how I'm going to make it, but I'm 87. You're 92. Think about the number. You're very old. Your bones are weak. You're tired. You're in like a care facility. Your spouse, your children, like your spouse is gone, however that might be. Your children are busy because that's the way life works. And it's fall. And you look outside and you see the brown leaves, the green, the orange leaves falling off the tree. And you realize it's the season of where things start to die. And all of a sudden you feel a sharp pain in your left arm. And then all of a sudden you feel like a cement truck fell on your chest. And you push the button, you push the nurse button, right? And you say, come, nurse, come see. And she's assuring you, everything's going to be okay, man. Everything's going to be fine. You'll be okay, right? Everything's fine. And just at that moment, everything slows down. Slows down real, and all of a sudden your life starts flashing in front of you. And you remember, got some notes here, but you remember the dreams that you had that you didn't pursue. And you remember the goals you wanted but you put off. And you remember friends saying to believe in yourself but you didn't. You remember the people that scoffed at you and your plans and you let them. You remember how many opportunities you had in life and you gave up on them. And all of a sudden, you realize that you're having a heart attack. And it's not the little one. It's the big one.
It's the one.
Yeah. And literally as you like go into eternity, your last moment thoughts are, I wasted my life. Now, that sounds miserable, right? Yeah. So, to me, sometimes you've got to take like those massive amount of steps, right? To figure out, what do you want your life to look like? By the way, I mean, it doesn't have to be family first life. It doesn't have to be here. I love everybody here the same. Like, that's why I tell them, I'd be like, I'm rooting for everybody, whether it's here or not. I would argue here is great, and you should do it, right? You wouldn't be in the room if it weren't. But, like, what do you want that to be? So that's step 2 is, we went number 1, what do you don't want? Well, I'm pretty sure I don't want that. So every time you waste, and maybe you should waste a day. I would argue you should have days where you waste them, just occasionally. That's just me, my personal preference. I think it's okay to blow a day to make yourself feel good. And now, I'd also say, if you're broke, I'm not into blowing days, but that's just fine, you know, so it just depends. So, the long story short is, figure out what you don't want, and when you start blowing weeks, days, etc., think about what the end of your life's gonna look like. And think about that right there in itself, because that can help propel you into number 2, visualize what you do want. So, you know, people are extreme entrepreneurs, all these different people do the visualization boards and the cars and the, you know, like dream boards and words, and I don't mind those. If that helps you, do them. I don't know, it's interesting, and I don't feel, to be clear, I don't feel like I've reached any sort of significant success. The only thing I can tell you about like my personal finances and things like that, as I obtain more income or different levels or something like that, I'm sure you guys would feel the same, but it's not like it really does. It's like you're just living life, right? I mean, it doesn't really feel any different. Sometimes it's nice to take a step back and say, wow, since I came to Family First Life, look how much better my life has been, that's for sure. I have a lot of gratitude when it comes to that. But it's not like, you know, I'm not wowed by material things. Some people are, and if that makes you move, then do it, right? So figure out what you want, that's step 2. And here's the last crucial step to massive action. So goals get lost. I know you guys don't write down your goals, and if you do, I don't think you really, I don't know how much you really follow them. Otherwise, you wouldn't be at the first of the year talking about, now's the time I'm going to do my new diet. Now's the time I'm going to do, you know, this is the year I'm going to go to the next level, and all this stuff, and feel all different. You don't need a new year to start over, right? In fact, that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves is New Year's resolutions. It just bothers the crap out of me because it's a bunch of, you know, fake and false promises. If you can't make it to the gym right now, then when can you make it? You know what I mean? It's just silly, so whatever. So goals are great. You have to have them, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But here's what's better than goals is daily tasks. So write down 5 daily tasks. Guess what? Get done. Tasks get done. Goals do not get done. But guess what? If you take care of 5 tasks a day, your goals will get done. Does that make sense? So I'm just trying to trick ourselves into achieving our goals by finishing tasks. Now, guess what tasks can be? Tasks don't have to be Family First Life. Tasks could be keeping your promise on waking up and going to bed at the same time. Check, check. That could be 2 or 1. It could be reading a book at X amount of time or listening to a podcast. Check that. You can make them very small tasks to make sure that you're feeling like you're accomplishing things during the day. Now, also, I'm going to tell you, you need to put some Family First Life income-producing activities in there, for sure, and check those boxes. But you have to think, you know, and it can be relationship, your spouse, your kids, you know what I mean, your partner, whatever. It could be like, hey, I'm going to do this with them today. Check that box. I'm going to work out at this time. Check that box. That's how you gain more confidence. So if you're someone that lacks confidence, you don't have any tasks that you achieve on a daily basis. And that's the first step to obtaining some some significant confidence, is that there in itself. So be 5 only, not 10, 5 tasks a day, talk to me in a year and your life will be changed, if you did it. Are you willing to do it? And I'll always take someone that's willing over talent, right? Everybody's got talent, but are you willing? That's the difference between like Amy, Grayson, the big producers in the room, is they're much more willing to go to work, where you're not. You know what I mean? And they're as amazing as they are, and they are very effective in the home and all that. You could be the same as anybody else. Just a matter of if you're willing to do it. Let's talk about simplified issue versus fully underwritten. This is important for new agents. It's important for veteran agents. I want to talk about how to eliminate the competition. So when you're in the house and you say, hey, I do life insurance, I do mortgage protection, I do final expense burial, and I do retirement income plan. So you let them know the array of things that you do up front, so you can then explain the difference between fully underwritten life insurance and non-medical life insurance. So this is important. If you explain this to them and say, listen, this is, you say that up front, after you get the help. So after you get the medications, their billed, everything. Because we don't even know what product we're going to recommend until that happens. We don't recommend anything until we know their health, right? So, you say, hey, John, I could show you a price that is really like, it'd be like the newspaper, one at this price at the car lot, come on down, and then you come down, and that car is sold, and then there's a completely different price, and you're feeling terrible. So I can quote you a price that's very, very attractive, and that's called fully underwritten life insurance. The problem is, because of your build, because you're 6 foot 240, because you're on a blood pressure medication, because one of your parents died before age 70, they would what's called table rating. So I would quote you, $100 a month for $250,000 of coverage, or whatever that number might be. But the problem is it'd probably come back at $300 or $400 a month. So what you didn't know by filling out this life insurance quote online, or this final expense and burial, you don't have to explain this to them, but this is primarily just a fully underwritten versus simplified issue scenario. So what you need to know is the reason why I'm recommending we do simplified issue non-medical life insurance for your specific case is because it's a pass or fail. You still have to qualify, still have to ask you health questions. But the difference is, if you get qualified, the price will not be any, bad news, it won't be any lower, good news, it won't be any higher, but you'll get the best price according to your specific scenario. Because you're an oral diabetic, because you're, have a stent put in your heart, because of this is the best route. So John and Mary, does it make sense why we're not doing fully underwritten life insurance and we're doing non-medical, simplified issue life insurance? Yes. Guess what happens now? Price is off the table. But if you don't explain it to them, that whole scenario and why it's not advantageous to have a non-medical policy, then they're going to be like, I need to shop around. So if you're not explaining that, that's probably why, you meet with somebody like, yeah, we're going to look around more. That's two things really. It's that there, and it's you not providing value over price, and it's actually you not problem solving. So the difference is your job is to find the hot button and to problem solve, and that's where value exceeds price. Yeah.
When do you bring that up during the appointment, or is it
probably right after you ask the health? I mean, I'm going to say, hey, I do traditional life insurance, non-medical mortgage protection type life insurance, burial, final expense, retirement income plan. And then as soon as I ask the health questions, I'll go, let me quickly go over the landscape. I'm going to pretend like you know nothing. I say things like that to see, some people will be like, well, I know a lot. And I'm like, all right, great. You know what I mean? You just never know. Or, but what were you saying? Go ahead.
I was just wondering, the people who were like, well, I know I'm fully healthy. I'll apply for these tests. And how do you count?
Well, if their build is off, I tell people, hey, they want me to be 6'3", 190 to get the best rates. I can't do fully underwritten life insurance. So, without any medications or anything, if you have a parent that passed before 70, they'll hold your family history against you. If your parents had heart disease before, you know, a certain age, they'll hold that against you. So there's, and the biggest thing is, people think they're healthy and then they get their test back and their triglycerides are high and then they can't get anything, right? Like it really screws up. If you're selling fully underwritten, you're selling price. And I promise they'll go find the best price somewhere else anyway. So you'll be like, oh, I just quoted them X, I'm doing them a huge service. No, they're gonna find something better. They will lose interest because it takes 6 to 8 weeks, fully underwritten. And it's just, for 95, probably almost 99% of our scenarios, it doesn't make sense. Now, if you're doing like index universal life, tax-free retirement, then we're doing fully underwritten stuff because you're doing a $24,000 annual premium, right? Those are different animals, and that's okay. Yes.
Okay, so you got a scenario where you have a retired military in his mid-50s, and he's on traumatic brain injury medication, and he was turned down a year and a half ago by Allstate
Yep.
for any life insurance. Can we help him?
Yeah, so you're gonna do final expense at that point. Eagle Premier does an instant decision in the house as long as they can answer no to the questions. That's where we're gonna start. It's 10 points higher. Eagle Premier is 10, just remember this, Eagle Premier is 10 points higher than every other final expense product we have. You get instant decision in the house. There's no phone interview, vested renewals, and you just run the script check and go from there. But you need to
answer no to the.
Yeah, they have to answer no to the questions.
Right.
Yeah, and that. But so most new agents struggle with that close right there. A veteran agent salivates over that. I promise you.
Okay.
And the reason why is you don't know how to close the gap. And so here's the best. What type of lead was it?
So it was a mortgage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to know how to close that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, help me help him.
No, that's fine. No problem. So he was how old? 55?
About 56.
All right, 56.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the mortgage amount?
Gosh, it was.
Let's say it's 200,000.
Yeah, about 200. Yeah.
About that. Let's say the house. Hey, what's your? Let's say guy's name's John. Everybody's name's John to me, so whatever. It's my middle name too, so whatever. Anyways, and hey, John, what's your house worth? It's worth 250, we'll say. So you have to. Here's how you solve the problem. You have to sometimes create one. Does that make sense? So if they don't know it and see it, then there's no value. So say, okay, John, let me walk you through a scenario that I've seen. And even if you're new, you can say, let me walk you through a scenario that we've seen through our office all the time. Not just some of the time, all the time. Someone with your health, etc. Let's say you die a little bit sooner than we thought, John. Like age 70. You're young, but let's say you pass away at age 70. So here's the good news, John, is your house is going to go up in value over time. So I'm writing this down, by the way, on the back of the lead.
Right.
And in the meantime, you're going to pay a lot of the interest up front, but then it's going to fall off.
Mm-hmm.
So here you are at age 70, and you die. And this could be anything. If you got 70, we could do 80 years old. If the older you are, you kind of want to close the gap on the years. Does that make sense? Like if you got 70, you want to do 80 or you know, etc. You want to paint that picture. And you also want to make sure that they understand that they don't have any money. Does that make sense? Because we're selling a $30,000 policy to them. So that's important too, because if you don't set the stage, say, John, this is what about 95% of people do based off of your circumstances. Your income is your number one asset, but here's the problem, John, you don't have any savings. You don't have any buffer for marriage or whatever. And you're like, does that make sense? And he's like, yes. Okay. So, John, this policy, if he's 56, it'd be fairly cheap, but let's say it's $115 a month or whatever. And this could be $230 a month later or whatever the number is. And by the way, this is important. I'm writing this bigger, but like, you want to write the monthly premium really small, 115. here's the benefit, 30,000. It's a little tactics. That's my car days right there showing. Anyways, so 30,000. John, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna pay $115 a month. It's 30,000. I never avoid price, by the way. Like I say it with confidence. Like, hey, you're gonna pay $115 a month for 30,000. Here's what's gonna happen. In basically 15 years, your house is probably gonna be worth $350. Would you agree? 15 years is a long time. Yeah, that sounds about right. And in 15 years, you're paying a lot of the interest up front. You'll probably still owe $125 on your house. Now the good news is, John, you've got $225,000 of equity. That is your life savings. This is your legacy for Mary, for the kids, for everyone, right? Can you see how important that 225 is?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, great. Listen, John, what's going to happen is this $115 is going to give Mary 30 grand. It's going to allow her to make the $1,300 mortgage payment. We're going to ask that on the financial inventory. It's going to allow her to make the $1,300 mortgage payment for X amount of years and either pull this equity out and be able to live on that money for quite some time. She could put it as a down payment. She could refinance the home for a smaller mortgage and be more affordable, or she could probably reverse the mortgage if she's above age 62. So it gives her 3 options. So you're 115, and you told me earlier, by the way, you said that's no money, I'm not doing it. Well, your 30 grand gives her 3 options. Right now she has none. So what I need you to do, John, is guess what? This $115 is not for 30,000. It's for 255,000. So I just sold a $255,000 death benefit to him because I talked about it, walked him through it on a $30,000 policy.
Brilliant.
But most people get scared with that lead where I want to fly to Atlanta and run all those leads. But so that is actually your best lead.
Yeah.
Because they don't get more healthy, by the way. So they have to, that's a sense of urgency. Guess what? You have, post-traumatic stress disorder. That is not going to change.
He almost not took the call. He almost not made the appointment. I had to thank him for his service.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, give us a chance to get in there and try to help your family because you sacrificed 26 years in this man's arm.
Yeah. So that's crucial, by the way. That close right there. That's crucial if you want to. And now, gosh, I'm not kidding you. If you guys want to just stack those appointments, I'll just fly out.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
So, got a question for you.
Yeah.
So, what about people who are older than 56? You know you're gonna have to do the similar concept.
Yep.
Buying time.
Yep.
But maybe they have a lot smaller mortgage amount. Maybe they owe $20,000 left on the home.
Okay.
Or whatever it is, and they say, well, I might as well just double up my mortgage payments, right, and pay it off pretty soon. I mean, it seems logical to do it that way.
Yeah, the problem is with those people is like, hey, listen, that probably would have made sense 20 years ago, 10 years ago, but you don't have any money. And you not only need to do it for the debt reduction, I get why you filled out the form, but you need to do it for income replacement. So you need to hedge at this point. And if you're making double payments, spend $200 on a $30,000 policy, or spend $250 on a $30,000 policy, and take the other $250 and put it towards your marriage. At least you've got both things going for you. But you can't afford to make a financial mistake right now, and this is a guaranteed death benefit that avoids probate, and your income's going to get slashed for Mary when you die, so you can't afford not to do it. 10 years ago it was a rash decision. Today it makes financial sense. I just need your driver's license to ask you some questions. So that's how I would do that. So, yep.
What if you sit with somebody and they already have a bunch of life insurance, or they have annuities and all that, so
Yep.
they don't necessarily have a need for the life insurance, so how do you?
Sometimes that's okay, right? But that's where you need to slow down and figure out where we can help them. Generally going to help them some way. Like they have annuities, that's a key. I was like, oh, we got annuities. We can talk about, and when you sit down with people, about 80% of people have a variable annuity. You want to know how to set an appointment with a variable annuity for everybody in the room?
Yes, please.
It's really simple. You want to know how? It's the most easiest sale in the world. So if someone has a variable annuity, you're going to say this. I'm assuming you purchased that annuity for the guarantees, correct? Right?
Yeah.
Because they did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Great. I'm sure you'd be interested in me looking into getting you higher guarantees with a different insurance company if it made financial sense, correct? Yes. Okay, let me come back. Let me get a picture of your statement. Let me come back here in 3 days and I'll show you what we can come up with. And I'd say, listen, not trying to talk crap, but variable annuities are super high in fees and they do not perform like you thought they were. And I guarantee you're underwhelmed by this whole thing, because I could name all the different companies that we, you know, see these annuities with, and I don't know anybody that's, I've never really met any, no kidding. Like, I've never met anybody with a variable annuity that's been like, man, this thing's kicking butt. It's taking names, and I'm the happiest client ever. So just think about that. That's a lot of people that I've met with over the years that I've literally, I'm trying to think. I don't think I have one, seriously. So be confident and say, hey, I know you bought the variable annuity for a guarantee. There's higher guarantees out there with lower fees. Let me come back here in 3 days and show you what we got. That's it. Say it with confidence. That's it. You'll start rolling annuities more than you'll do one a month for 100,000. You'll get $5,000 dropping in your bank account every single month, just off of asking that question. You know, you could be a variable annuity hunter and change your whole career. You know, just based off of that.
How do you do that?
Financial inventory. You know, just anything. You know, the magic question. Anything else that acts like life insurance will change your life too.
Is there like a certain company that typically has like the variable annuities mostly?
If it's a brokerage account, it's a variable annuity.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like, it's generally a variable annuity, 80% of the time. So you could, if someone's like saying, I have a guaranteed interest rate on my portfolio, by the way, they just don't really understand that it's an annuity and it's a variable annuity. They're like, oh yeah, my money's guaranteed at 7%. If somebody says that about their brokerage, that means it's a variable annuity.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? They don't even understand what I got. Oh, so you got an annuity? Yeah, I think so. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well there's annuities we have that guarantee a 10% over. You know, so there you go. It's just math. Let's see here. Let's talk about. All right, this stuff down here. I'll give you some mindset stuff. I think this is important. I'll start with the first four. So this is more of like mindset for top producers, business owners, etc. A lot of times you hear the difference between like growth mindset, fixed mindset, and you got to ask yourself where you're at. Like if you feel like you're not trusting your manager, or if you feel like you're someone that's not open to trying new things, especially as you get into this business, I think you got to look at yourself and say, okay, am I really wanting to grow, or am I just got this fixed mindset? Because if you do, it's almost like you should go get a W-2 job. There's nothing wrong with that either, but doesn't make sense to come into a business and not be completely open to, you know, growth and ideas. And that's why we're here sharing ideas with you today, you know, so that's important as well. The first thing I'd say is how accountable are you to the business? Like, this is something, Brent, too, that I've changed recently. Even talking to newer agents is like how enthusiastic I am about plugging into the calls, into the training online, into being here at the office. Because if you're not enthusiastic about that, they're not going to get on the calls. They're not going to get in the training. They're not going to understand how important it is. And I think these are I'm continually identifying all my shortcomings over years of mess that I've personally made, right? But I mean, I'm always trying to evolve and get better because I know I suck. So if you know that, you can get better. So my point is, how accountable are you in regards to that? Like, are you someone that's obsessed with the business too? Like, do you just like delve into all the videos and training, and you get as much as you can, like late at night? Like, I remember, like my family owns the world's largest Dodge Chrysler dealership, and I did F&I for the first 8 years out of college, and I've been self-employed the last 16. So I did F&I. That's where I feel like I really learned closing techniques and sales and massive reps of people and all different types of people, you know, and all those that went to all the hardcore closings you could ever think of. So I think the car business for a lot of things. I was just talking to John. I was talking to Montalto about this too. Is you know, I think the car business for the long hours, because I came into a self-employed realm, and I wasn't like, it's dangerous because most people that are W-2, they'll come into self-employed and they'll be like, I now own my schedule and I can do whatever I want. And I'm like, yeah, but you get paid what you're worth. So right now you suck. And so that's a problem. It can be a problem. Now, the nice thing about the habits that I created in the car business translated to this. Like, I don't mind 15-hour days. It's just not a big deal. Like, I don't understand anybody that's whining or complaining about long days in this business, because really it's a lot of windshield time, which, hey, I have compassion. I'm a little bit different. Like, I've been doing this thing for a while. I get that driving around can be exhausting. I get that people can be exhausting. I get that everything, you know, but hey, just remember, whatever you focus on grows. Or you could say, man, I get the opportunity to, like, it's crazy. You get 8 appointments a day, it's going to be hard to not make $2 grand. Right? And you're like, man, I made $2 grand. I got no show 4 times, and I did this and that, and I made $2 grand. It's like, okay. You're supposed to feel bad about this now. You know, the perspective gets lost really fast in this business. You know what I mean? Don't forget that you were trading hours for dollars, grinding it out for $60K, gonna move up the corporate ladder and do your 401K with a 3% match, fired up about the world. Don't forget that. That was you, right? So, living right here, you know? By the way, if you were living right here and you're W-2, you have nothing to lose. I was talking to an agent the other day, and he was telling me a story, and I have a lot of compassion for it. But, you know, he's like, I've been making $3 grand a month. I'm like, you have nothing to lose. Like, you're already right here. Like, it's just, you have nothing to lose. I mean, it's hard to not make $3 grand if you work in a month, you know, let alone a week if you're really working. So, just, you gotta ask yourself how accountable you are. The next thing is, you gotta fix yourself. Nobody's perfect, by the way. I'm continually trying to fix myself. I was talking to Amy earlier today, and like, I recently switched up my diet, for example. Like I'm doing not while I'm here with Mike, thanks. Everything fell off. I've been okay, but yeah. The bathing suit fell off, actually. It was not my shorts, but enough information. That's awkward. So, I will chase squirrels. You know me. I will start chasing squirrels. I'll be out in the parking lot, and you guys will be like, "What just happened?" I thought it was going well, and yeah. Why are you here? What am I talking about? Fixing yourself. Obviously. That's right. I'm talking about fixing myself. Yeah. So, like. The one thing that I've done a really good job of over the last like 2 years is I get up about 5 to 5:15 and I work out. Now I'm lucky that I have a daughter that like works out 2 hours before school, so I do kind of like, but it works for us. So my daughter gets up at 5, she's going in 8th grade, and she does an hour of strength and conditioning and shoots for an hour before school starts. And then after school she gets more reps of basketball because we're a little loony in the Smith house. But during that time, I'm able to go work out and do all those things, and it's been a nice, good structure, because I wake up and go to bed really the same time every day. That gives me a lot of confidence. Just recently took, no sugar and gluten out of the picture, right? Just trying to, get more healthy. Because I'll be honest with you, like my dad's got heart disease, diabetes, and that's a big motivating factor for me. Like I just got my A1Cs tested for fun. Everything's great and fine, but I don't want to follow the footsteps. It's kind of like that visualization. Like I don't want that. Like I don't want that. So
You said you go to bed at the same time every night. What time is that?
I try to go to bed, be in bed by 10. And I'm different. Oh, sleep. I'm different. Let me talk. I'm a different. Everybody's different. Everybody needs a different amount of sleep. You can hear the hardcore, like, hey, you can sleep when you're dead and all that stuff. Like, when we talked to Mike about this, I recently have not been sleeping. Like, I'm a 7-hour guy. Like, I need 7 hours, generally. And I've only been sleeping for about 5, for whatever reason, lately. Which is not here yet. Is that what it is? Is that what happens? I'm also blind, so. Going blind, you can't sleep. Awesome. It gets better for you young people. It's really great. So, life is good. Anyways, my point is you've got to understand what you need, right? How many hours. Now, the key is, if you're sleeping well into the morning, you're blowing it, right? Just go to bed earlier, and like what happens late at night is, I don't know, that's my opinion, but not much, so.
I grew up hearing my grandmother say, early to bed, early to rise makes a young man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Amen. Your grandma's a wise lady. Yeah. So, just understanding, like, the other thing about fixing yourself, though, is like, you got to understand, like, what motivates you, what doesn't motivate you. Like, I'm not just talking about health and all that stuff. I'm talking about, like, everything. Like, what do you want out of this? Start to ask yourself more questions to identify what you need to fix, and things will get a little bit better over time. Developing grit, I think for a lot of people that come to this business, you hear me say this a lot, but if you're one of those people where you're trying new things every 6 months, or there's a new idea, or there's this or that, it's probably like the reason why Mike is successful is he's stuck with this for so long. It's just compounding effort and interest that he's had over multiple years. Same with John, same with Brent. You can use me as an example. We've just been doing this for a long time. Imagine what it looks like for you new people if you just did the system a decade from now. If you look back, every year it gets better. You know what I mean? But we lose, like, when you're in the middle of it and you're like, but I got no-showed 3 times and my feelings are hurt. And my spouse said I should quit. And they don't believe in me, or this or that, because everybody's got different dynamics, right? It's amazing when you start to make a little bit of money how that will change things. So, for sure. So think about if you're someone that's always like trying new things and not sticking with it, like Mary, your wife, with real estate. She stuck with it for a period of time. That's why she's been successful. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter what business you're in, you just got to stick with it. So you've got to figure out, the first thing I would say to new people, instead of you, like, here's the problem. You protect yourself so much. And I do it too. But what I mean by this is, all of you in this room do this, because I do it. You probably give it enough effort, but you're not going to give it every single bit of your effort that you can, just in case you don't deliver on what you really have promised to yourself. You don't let yourself down. Does that make sense? So you're at like 92% of what should be 100% because you just don't want to hurt your own feelings, so you can let yourself off the hook. That's a real problem. So you got to look at yourself inside and say, okay, where am I at on the effort level, and am I really willing to give everything it takes? Because everyone's like, yeah, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, and then like, we'll run this appointment over here, or fly this city, or see this person, or run 10 appointments, and I can't. I don't know about today. Maybe tomorrow. It's like, oh, you blew it. Now you're on a deathbed. But anyways, so there's that too. So the other thing is changing your identity. So this coincides with like what I just talked about. Here's the problem for everyone, including me. It's happening to Mike. It has happened. He's continually growing, but it still happens. Happens to Brent. Happens to John. Happens to everybody in this room. You're used to running at like an 80-degree temperature, or whatever you want to call it, right? The difference is when the going gets rough and you have no choice, and you have to make it happen, Grace. Like when the bank account, you get some chargebacks, and you're buying leads, and the bank account goes way down, and then the sense of urgency goes way up. You do whatever it takes. So you start running at 65-degree temperature. You do whatever it takes to get back to 80 and feel normal and comfortable, right? Do whatever it takes. That's why, interesting enough, you look at week 1 issue paid numbers, and then week 2. Like week 2 is always terrible compared to week 1 because people got a little bit of money and they're like, I'm comfortable. And then they don't get paid in week 2, and then week 3 comes, and then they need to. It's interesting. You watch those issue paid numbers, and the numbers don't lie, right, John? So, the same is true with success. Things start going really well. You get up to 95 temperature, and then you cool yourself down and kill the momentum. Ooh, I just had a big week. I made more than I thought I was going to make. Well, now I don't need to have. I just funded a big annuity, or I just did this. I got more money than I thought. I'm going to cool myself down to 80 now. That is a great way to really ruin momentum. And momentum's hard to continue. It's hard to get. It's easy to lose. All those things are true. The key is you've got to have short-term memory. It doesn't matter if you did X the week before. You just have to go out and produce the same amount and have a short-term memory. Be like a cornerback in the NFL. If you get beat deep, you got to line up and play the next play. You can use a million different sports analogies too, but be that way, and you'll have success as well. A couple other things, just being offensive-minded. That really just talks about the leads. Just make sure you're going on offense with leads and being aggressive, because that's going to change your scenario. And if you're looking at leads as a cost versus investment, that's a complete wrong mindset. So you need to figure that out for yourself. You need to understand that you're going to have to invest in yourself. And the difference is, if you were good on the phone, by the way, if you were good on the phone, you'd invest in leads. You're not good on the phone, so you don't invest in leads. Because you can't set appointments because you suck. I love you. But I mean, come on, that's the truth. Like if you knew you could just rapid fire, like we talked about before, you knew you had the ultimate you ask yourself this: if you knew without a shadow of doubt, you dominate the phones. It does not matter. I dominate the phones. I set appointments. Doesn't matter the lead. You would buy leads, but you don't, because you don't dominate the phone. See what I'm saying? Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me. I don't know. So number 6 is the domino effect. A lot of times in this business, I always say, confused people do nothing in the house, confused agents do nothing, right? So a lot of times you're like, oh my gosh, I need, first of all, I need business cards. I'm gonna need my business cards. I'm gonna need to understand every underwriting guideline. I'm gonna also need to know all the products from all the carriers. I'm going to need to make 312 warm market calls to all my friends and family to practice, and then once that's done, I will go to the office, I'll watch 12 people dial and record them and study that, and then when I get done with that, I'm going to watch a video, and then that's what I'm going to do. So my point is this: you got to get great on the phone, one thing at a time. Got to get great on the phone, then the house, then everything else. Final expense gets you into maybe annuity. Final expense can get you into Medigap. Final expense could get you identity theft protection. But you got to start running appointments, and then one thing will lead to the other, which then creates the domino effect, and everything starts to fall into place. Is what I'm saying. And then you can run some internet leads and start to do some HMS 125 cash back, and have your full comp and get 8% and all that stuff. So we can get you into different quintins. You can start to ask people when you sit down, how much are you putting in your 401k? put $500 a month. How much is your match? It's 5%, okay? So you're taking about 10% of your check and you're putting in, let's say they make $5 grand a month. Putting about 10% of your check in and you get about $250 match on your 500, yes, okay. Well, I wanna take this extra $250 and show you how to eliminate taxes when you retire and maximize your income. Does that sound fair? Yes, and you start to do IULs, just by asking better questions and understanding how to transition from one place to the other. But the difference is, inside that financial inventory, which we train all the time, there's a million videos out there, you still don't ask that question, so you never get in that Quentin, and you never cross that bridge, because you refuse to change, because you're comfortable, and you wanna run at 80 degrees. Even Amy writes $1,472,000 with insurance. It doesn't matter, she's comfortable. No offense, Amy, you're comfortable. You stay in your lane, and you won't get out of it. It's true. You're really great. You're great at it. But like, you could do 1.5 million standing on your head if you would challenge yourself. So, I mean, it's a compliment, but it's true. You know what I'm saying? So everybody's different, right? Like, everybody's different, but I'm challenging anybody. Doesn't matter where you're at in the food chain. Doesn't matter if you're number 1 or number 1,000. You've got to evolve and create the domino effect. So, I like this one. Really just, last two really is persuasion. That's kind of like a sexy word to me. Like, persuasion is something that a lot of entrepreneurs talk about, like, you know, sales and persuasion and everything else. And the key to persuasion is really only one thing, and it's the belief in yourself. I think Brian Tracy talks about this, this is interesting. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna make half of this up to warn you, but Brent said it was okay, so no. You're like, wait, he makes up everything. Yeah. If I say it with confidence, it means that I'm persuading you.
We'll be the first time.
Hey. Yeah, but no, actually this is true, I just don't have the number, okay? So Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, it was one of them. I don't know who said it, but it was one of those, sales trainer type guys. And they were just saying, for every sale you lose because of too much enthusiasm, you'll gain like 100. I don't know this number, the 100 part, but it's like a big number, right? 10 more. I think it was 100, so I'm going with 100. You'll gain 100 because you're enthusiastic. So my question to you is, whether it's you hiring an agent, whether it's you sitting down with a client, do you have that transfer of enthusiasm? Now, Brian Tracy, I know this, 50% of sales is the transfer of enthusiasm. So how do you create emotion with your clients? How do you make sure values exceeds price? Enthusiasm is a lot of that. Enthusiasm is everything. So when I sit down with a client and I start to explain the product, I get excited. Not like cheerleading excited, all that, but it's like you can feel, I make you feel me. Does that make sense? Really weird, but I make you feel what I'm talking about based off my enthusiasm. And that's something I learned early on in Harvest. So if you cannot have that transfer of enthusiasm, so that's the big thing, like showing you that graph earlier, that is purely, you have to kill them in the house, meaning you have to take them through that step and say, okay, at age 81, or you're gonna die about sooner than we thought, you don't have any financial resource, you have to get them to a step sale and agree all along the way, and then that will help you build the value where money exchanges hands. You had a question?
I don't anymore.
Really?
He answered it. I know, you're awesome.
If I ramble on and on, it will come to me, for sure. Let's get some final little tips and then I'll wrap up. Let's see. Yeah? I've gone almost an hour. Cut myself off. So, okay, take this down.
You can use the other eraser too, John, if you want.
Okay, it's too late.
Yeah.
Press hard, 3 copies. We're going to talk about annuities now. talk about a big ticket item that can get you paid. Was it good?
It was good.
It's good. Awesome. I like it. We should stand up and tell them. Anyways, all right. So, 5 retirement fears. So, just like insurance sales, life insurance, our job is to find the hot button with money. So a lot of times when you're filling out like an Ask a Specialist through the CRM or whatever, the first thing you need to do is identify what are they using the money for, right? Because every situation's different. We were just talking too about the legacy, right?
Yeah.
So number 5 is legacy. The 5th, this is in order. The number 5 fear of retirement is leaving a legacy to their loved ones. Now, sometimes people have qualified funds or even non-qualified funds and they're not withdrawing any money on them. They're just trying to figure out, they might take some withdrawals, but they're gonna leave it to their spouse or loved ones. And we have some unbelievable product like Agility with the theme gives a 25% immediate bonus to the benefit base, which is the death benefit. It has to be paid over 5 years, but it gives an immediate 25% benefit base to the death benefit side if someone were to die. That's 25%. So I had a lady that's battling cancer, and it's not like, it doesn't appear to be life-threatening anyways, but she's been through some cancer, so it's been a rough go, and she's like, listen, I'm gonna take withdrawals here and there, but I'm also really want to take care of my only daughter here that lives in the house. So, and she actually had a life insurance policy that I sold her 8 years ago. So luckily she has some life insurance. She was a current client. You know what, here's the crazy story about this, by the way, is I had sold the policy in Idaho like 8 years ago, and I get a lead, right? I set an appointment. It's the same lady who moved 6 hours away over to where I live now, outside Portland. And so I come to the door and she's got the policy, and she's like, there's a lot of Matt Smiths, but I just had a feeling. Kind of an interesting story.
Wow.
Then she's battling cancer, so it was like I could do an AIG policy or something like that. Long story short, I was like, here's what I'd recommend. Let's take this 250 grand. Let's give you a 25% immediate benefit base. That's $62,500 to your benefit base. If you die, that we can pass to your daughter. Still take withdrawals because she needed $1,300 a month, so we understand we'll take some withdrawals. Benefit base will grow, and the crediting method is 175% of, and I'm talking over some of your heads, but I'm just trying to give you some thoughts and ideas. But the crediting method is nice because to the death benefit side, because whatever the Janus fund or whatever the BNFP fund or whatnot, whatever fund it does, let's say it returns 5, 175% gets credited to the death benefit side. So if the market goes up 5, they'll get 8% growing on that 25% bonus side. So it's amazing, like systematic withdrawal, death benefit annuity. So just knowing how to talk to people about that. Like now, if you sat down with someone, here's what I expect you off this training right there. I expect you to say, oh, I have a product that can give you a 25% bonus to your legacy right off the bat. I know you'd be interested. Let me come back in a couple of days and show you what that looks like. That's all you need to say. Don't say it's an annuity. Don't say anything. Just say, let me come back. Talk to you. Talk that way. Yes.
So why is it that you say that you'll come back in 3 days?
Because annuities is not something that you can pressure, or you wanna have multiple reps in the house. I'm not a one-sit annuity person. I've done a few like that. I don't even like doing it like that. Like I would prefer to build a relationship, go as many times as it takes to get their business. But the reason why I do that is you're not gonna really be able to do annuity on the fly anyways, in my opinion. Everybody, I would argue all of us in the room are just not that good, and I wouldn't recommend it anyways. So just ask a specialist, say, hey, this person's looking for the best legacy product, but they still want to withdraw money. They're 67 years old, it's qualified money, meaning they have to pay taxes on its old IRA or 401k. What would you recommend? And they'll send over an illustration, and they'll tell you how to sell it. Pretty straightforward, yes.
What's the withdrawal amount on that one? Like
10%.
Every year?
Yep, so, great product. Negative returns, number 4. So, if you don't know, whoa. Whoa!
I thought it was really important.
Is that what you did, right?
The funny thing is, I wrote it down and I didn't even realize.
Sequences?
No, this is 4. Actually, I know I screwed it up. Negative returns is not 2. Gosh, I suck. Anyways, negative returns is 4. I do remember that. I'll leave the mystery here. I won't tell you that. Just because it's so interesting. Anyways, no. Negative returns. So sequence of returns. How do I think I move the most amount of money is with sequence of returns on annuities. So just like killing someone in the house at age 81 or whatever we just talked about, you need to learn how to kill their money. So Sean Ruggiero just today, if you're on the advanced market sales call, which I'd recommend you get on every Thursday at 11 o'clock your time, he went over sequence of returns. He went over the graphs and everything. So if you weren't on that call, it's recorded. I get on Facebook and I watch him explain that sequence of return. Sean's been my business partner for like 16 years, and my college roommate, and first guy I met in college, and so great resource for me over the years to move money, and continually learning from him is great. So make sure you watch that particular episode, because it talks about bull market versus bear market. Like we're on this 10-year plus run of the bull market. Average bear market bull market lasts 7 years. You know, the last 2 have had 40% cliffs. And I would hate to see you, John and Mary, now that either you're getting ready to retire or you're retired, you have this much money, where the market drops, you're taking out 5 or 6% of your account, the market drops again the next year, and then all of a sudden you got 500 grand, it goes to 300, you're making withdrawals, we got 250,000, and you run out of money at age 78 just because of a market correction along with needing the money to live on. So let me show you a way to eliminate those negative returns, make sure you don't have to deal with that. Does that make sense, Sean and Mary? So talk about sequence returns in that manner so it can build value as well as that. So that's probably my #1 sale, sequence of returns, explaining that. Watch the AMS live show. Outpacing inflation. Every 26 years, according to like Social Security, inflation were to double. So if you're making like $2 grand in Social Security, in 26 years you're supposed to make like $4 grand. That'd be equivalent with inflation. Inflation's anywhere from, every year it's different. 2.1%, 1.73%, somewhere around those numbers. But people are concerned that they can't keep up with average cost of living for their retirement. So that we have certain products that can have inflation built into the income to make sure that it's going up over the years and continuing to give them an income stream. Number 2 is healthcare and long-term care costs. So, care costs. So a lot of people are concerned about healthcare and long-term care costs. So we have certain products where if you don't perform 2 out of 6 daily living activities, it will increase the income significantly and still pay them for the rest of their life. So, but it's not truly long-term care, but it's got some long-term care benefits and features built into it. And long-term care is very, very expensive, but annuities can be a great way to combat someone that's got to be put in a care facility that can increase their income 2 or 3 times, depending on the product. so that's important as well. The last thing is outliving your money. Number one retirement fear is sequence of returns. I would explain it in negative returns, I explain it in outliving your money. The number one fear of retirement is outliving your money. So to make sure, like I'll show you the graph that I write, and then we'll wrap it up. Maybe I'll answer 2 questions, we'll be done. So, I'm a big fan of being visual with clients because it helps. Every little bit helps. So I always explain indexing to people, and I just say, hey, listen, you know, it's 2019. If the Janus fund or the market goes up, 2020, your 100K, say turns into 107. Then 2020, 2021, let's say that turns into, you know, 115,000. And then 2021, the market crashes. Well, you would have a 0% floor, so you'd see a 0 that year on returns, but you still have 115,000. And then, you know, let's say the market does go up the following year, you'd have 124,000. And meanwhile, if there was a 40% cliff here, you know, your 115 might turn into, you know, 80,000, and you're taking withdrawals or whatever the number is, but everybody else is at 80,000. You get 124 on a fixed index annuity. Can you see how this makes financial sense? See how I did use a trial close in that word? Yeah. Can you see? I'm a big fan of can you see. Can you see how that makes financial sense? Yes, I can see. Okay, let me come back this next week. I'll give you some more details about this. And can I get us a picture of your statement? I'll do some due diligence for you. See you in 3 days, see you in 2 days, see you next week. See you, you know, maybe a little bit sooner is what I recommend. But write it out for people so they understand how indexing works. Because your job for annuity appointments isn't to sell it the first time. Your job is to create interest to create the next appointment. And the more you talk generally in the first appointment, the less chance you'll have it. So like we talked about it with a variable annuity. Hey, I'm sure you bought that for the guarantee. If I can show you a way to get a higher guarantee, I'm sure you'd be interested in looking at that. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Let me come back to this. Let me get a snapshot. Take a look at it. Somebody's sitting in a, you know, somebody's got a money account, money manager account, CDs, savings. I'm assuming you put your money in the bank to have it be safe, correct? Yes. If I show you a way that would be as safe as putting it in the bank, but it would yield much higher returns, like 5 to 6%, I'm sure you'd be interested, right? Yes. Okay. Let me come back in 3 days. Just word tracks and knowing what to say off of each scenario. Yes.
How do you make it not seem too good to be true sometimes?
I disclose the surrender fees are, I say, let's talk about the cons, right?
Okay.
You know, it's a 10-year contract. If you draw more than 10% a year, in year 1 you pay a 9% penalty. Year 2, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, you know. So I talk about, hey, these surrender charges are bad. Now I turn around and I say, just because there's hefty surrender charges, to me it's good because it allows you not to outlive your money, because if you're taking more than 10%, you're going to run out of money anyways. But, and I'll say, hey, there's this rider fee if there is one. Or, hey, there's participation rates, so you don't get the full, you know, you might get 6%, but the index or the Janus fund got 10 because you're in a 60% participation. So you're not going to get the full upside like if you were completely exposed to the market, but that's why you have a 0% floor. So if you explain participation rates, fees, surrender charges, they'll start to understand, oh, okay. And also saying, hey, listen, annuities are different because they can pool it with life insurance. So one of the great investments that you don't have right now is these insurance companies are collecting premiums. 2% of term pays out. You know, I tell people that. According to LIMRA, Life Insurance Marketing and Resource Association, 2% of term pays out. So think about this. Your money, the insurance company's collecting from this pool over here, where only 2% of the time they have to pay out, and they can use that money and your money to make it a safer, easier bet for your family. So you have what's called mortality credits from life insurance policies that are actually affecting your investment side that can be more structured and more stability for your portfolio. You know, just things like that, just explaining that. Also, you know, 401ks and IRAs, when you come across them, think about this too. There's over $1 trillion out there that are in orphan 401ks. So people like leave their jobs a minimum of 8 times, like switch jobs 8 times at this point in their life. So think about those people always switching jobs, starting their 401k. And here's the rule of thumb. If they rolled it into their current job, you could take their old job's 401k out, but you probably can't take their current job, right? Unless they're above maybe 59.5, but probably not likely. But if it's an old 401k and it's orphaned or whatever, that's easy. They roll it into a new 401k at their current job, you can even still take that, generally speaking. So that's important to know too.
Yeah, a little bit earlier, you spoke about someone putting a certain amount into their 401k, having a match and everything like that. Now, how do you position it or tell them, like, hey, this is what we can do? I guess my question is, how do you explain to them how to do it?
Gotcha. And you're talking about IULs, obviously, because that's what I was talking about. So for an IUL sales, like if you just, I'll give you a couple of different advanced market tips. If you're the variable annuity hunter and use the board track, assume you got it for guarantee, just did that. And then if you did this over here, you'll write IULs. Because if you, whatever you focus on grows, right? So if you just sat down with your people and you said, okay, what percentage of your paycheck do you put in your 401k? I max it out. I put 10%. Okay, you make 60 grand a year, 5 grand a month. You're putting 10% in your 401k, so you're putting about $500 a month. How much do you get a match on? I get 5%. I get 6%. Okay, so the first thing I always say is the best type of money is free money. The second best is tax-free, then tax deferred, then tax. So I love the fact that you're taking advantage of the free money. So I'd really recommend you still do 5% on your 401k to get that free money. But the other 5%, the other $250 that you're not getting matched on, we need to look at trying to eliminate taxes at retirement because they're the lowest they've ever been. And the one thing I know is the only reason why we save is for income. The only reason why we save for income. So the product that I'm going to show you not only makes it tax-free, but it actually maximizes your income, makes sure you can't outlive it for the rest of your life, which is extremely important as well. So let me show you what, you putting away $250 a month looks like, and I'll come back here in 2 days and I'll have some specific data for you in regards to that. That's how I would approach a 401k every single time.
So do you do the math with them like you were just explaining, like the formula, like, okay, you take this percentage.
Yep.
So you show them that number.
Yep. And if they don't have the free match, then I'm going to say, hey, let's take a look at taking the full deferred amount, and instead of you paying on the harvest, let's pay on the seed, not the harvest, and make this a better retirement for you. Yes.
Who's your go-to carrier for IULs?
Global Atlantic.
Global Atlantic.
Yeah, by far. I mean, they patented the IUL. They purchased Aviva's platform, and they have like 13.5% caps, 2% floors. I mean, different strategies overall. You can, if you're healthy enough, you don't have to do exam up to age 60. And they have what I mean by healthy, you can't have diabetes. It's not like simplified issue life insurance, but I mean, if you're on a blood pressure med and your bill's okay, you don't have to do blood urine.
So a 34-year-old with no illness.
Oh yeah, you could get $1 million through them with no exam.
Really?
Yeah.
How long does it usually take for that whole process to go and get paid out?
It's probably 10 days.
10 days?
Yeah, it's not like 7 to 10 days. 7 days would be fast, 10 normally.
Can I do illustrations myself?
Oh yeah.
On the numbers?
One thing I would tell you, it's important with IULs, this will help you gain confidence with your clients too, is call Global Atlantic Sales Desk. They do have the best sales desk out of all our carriers in my opinion. And say, hey, I've got Lifetime Builder Elite, that's the product for an IUL, and I've got a 34-year-old. I want to max fund it, so I'm doing this for, the word you want to use is I want to do this for retirement, so I want to max fund it. So by the way, with IULs, you're intentionally selling the least amount of insurance for retirement purposes. So you only get paid on the insurance you sell. And I actually use these word tracks with my clients. Hey, I only get paid, not that you care, on the insurance I sell, and I'm recommending you buy the least amount of insurance from me, and you max fund this. How do you build trust? Things like that, right? And if you do IULs correctly, you figure you're gonna get referrals. You're gonna have that happen. So minimum insurance, max funded, say, hey, I wanna fund it to age 65 and take loans, right? So that's how you wanna set up your illustration per se. Like, you wanna solve it for income at retirement age. So let's say 34 to age 65, X amount a month, $500 a month, whatever the number's gonna be. I want loans at age 65, and then it will show you what that will calculate. And also get the expense report though. The expense report breaks down the cost of insurance, every moving part, so they know how much the insurance is truly costing every year, and they know how much is going in like the S&P 500.
Is that in the illustration too?
It's not. You have to ask for the expense report.
We can't do it ourselves.
You can. Yep, you can click on expense report with the illustration. It will be the last 3 pages.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I know a lot of carriers, offer the local investment for their clients. Is it just the US markets that?
No, it's global. They have the Hang Sang and
Okay.
all that other stuff too. Yeah. Yep.
Can you give me an ideal situation for you where you sat with a client and you had to get them insurance and an IUL or something like that? Like how much insurance would you
yeah.
give them, how much IUL?
One thing I would tell you that I like to do when I do write an IUL, especially if it's like fast track through Global Atlantic, is an easy way to get 2 policies. So if they're below age 50, you can get $1 million of insurance with their fast track program. 55 is 500, 250 up to age 60 to give you an idea, but let's just use the below 50 example. Let's say they're putting $500 a month in and they bought $300,000 worth of insurance. I would go back and say, hey, I can also, which I really recommend you do it because you got preferred rates, I'd also recommend we attach a 20 or 30 year term for $700,000 for $60 a month. Because that's what it would be, you know. So because they're already qualified, that policy issues in 48 hours. Because you don't have to redo it, you just say, hey, this guy wants another 20-year term for $700K, and you can layer another policy on top of it. And there's more value. The more policies you sell, the better off you are. That's the one thing, the last thing I'll cover is this. I'm gonna cover persistency. I think this is important. Extremely important for everyone. In fact, I just did a little quick video on my group page about persistency because some people struggle with it, some people don't struggle with it. So first thing about persistency is if you are getting policies where they have buyer's remorse or they cancel or all these different scenarios up front, it means that you probably sold the benefits and features, but you didn't solve the problem. You didn't walk them through what we just talked about, paint a picture with them and made them feel like they understand that the value is there and they want to keep the product. So that, the first thing I'd say is you probably didn't problem solve. You probably benefits and featured them to death and it wore off and because there's no emotion with it, number one. Number two is you probably didn't layer it with maybe identity theft protection or like an accidental death policy. So another great way to get another policy in the house, let's say you did HMS 125 cash back or whatever you're doing, and it's $200 a month, and then say, oh, by the way, I would recommend that you get the old style mortgage protection, which is purely more of an accidental death, because for $60 for $300,000, you can have your family protected. And the biggest thing that I like about this coverage is if you die, bam, right away, you don't have any time for any second thoughts, you get a $300,000 check and it only costs you $60 a month. Does that sound fair as well? And your trial closes, but you're adding policies on because they already just bought one from you. They'll buy another one. So it's add identity theft, add, you can do the oh, by the way close, right? Oh, by the way, for an extra $7.19, I can get you $1 million worth of identity theft protection as well as reimbursement costs. All my clients do. It's the #1 rated crime in America. Do you have any identity theft? No. We're going to put that on as a rider for your policy. It's separate. It can be billed to you at $7.19, and then just sell that too. Yes.
One question back on the IUL.
Okay.
Those have I know some IULs have the living benefits term, terminal billing, and also some of them have the long-term care providers as well.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that you do through Global Atlantic, does it have those?
They have living benefits, not long-term care. Yeah, but similar to the annuity, there's like you can get a portion of the death benefit with, so it has a little bit of long-term care, but not like a true long-term care scenario. And then finally on persistency is Gosh, I lost it. He got me with the question.
No problem.
Yeah, multiple policies. I'm gonna have to look at my own video and figure out what the hell I made up at the airport. But it was on the way out here. So it was good too. Let me think. Policies, this, value.
So the problem,
So attempt to pull it up. It's on my Facebook page. Check it out the Northwest Facebook page. That's the third one I can't remember right now. Why can't I remember that? Probably because I've talked about so much I verbally vomited all over your guys' stuff, so I apologize.
Oh, this is awesome.
You basically, so your job is to, let's recap today. Otherwise we'll forget everything. So, the massive action thing, right? I think that was one of the most important things we did today. And out of the massive action, we don't need to think about the death thing, and we don't even need to visualize, but I do need you to start being task oriented. 5 tasks a day, so write that down. 5 tasks a day, accomplishing 5 tasks a day, make at least 2 a couple business, maybe 3, and make, a couple personal goals, because they're all intertwines, right? You feel good about yourself. So 5 tasks. Use the variable annuity thing, just be a variable, keep it simple. Like, hey, I don't know how to get into annuities. Dude, listen, when somebody says they have a guaranteed interest rate, or somebody says they have a variable annuity, say, I'm assuming you purchased that for the guarantee. Yes. If I can get you a higher guarantee, I'm sure you'd be interested. Is that correct? Yes. Let me see you in 3 days. Let me take a picture of this. I'll come back and show you. Just be that. You'll do $1 million a year just by asking that question. $1 million a year. You'll put a minimum of 50 grand in your bank account if you just ask that question. Next thing. Know the 5 retirement fears. I like that. Know what people's money is for. I like this. The third thing. The simplified issue versus fully underwritten. If you don't explain it in the house, you're more likely to get shopped and charged back, etc. Explain that after the health. Explain the difference between fully underwritten and non-medical simplified issue life insurance. Final thing is that phone thing, right? I harped on you all day. So that's number 4. The phone. I'm busy. I already take care of it. Price. Call me back. Know how to quick set the appointment. Know how to, if you don't know those and can't get them off your tongue in a quick manner, you're not good enough on the phone. And probably most of us are not good enough on the phone. And so challenge yourself in those areas and I think you'll get better. So that's all my time. I love you guys.
Thank you
so,
very much.